It's now been months since the shocking death of pop star Liam Payne, and we're now learning his official cause of death. On top of that, a fifth suspect has also been arrested in connection to his death. Before we get into all of that, we have to go back to the beginning. I know you know the name Liam Payne as part of One Direction. This was a really famous band back in the 2010s. They actually formed because of the X Factor. All of these boys were from the United Kingdom and went on this singing competition show as individual participants. And Simon Cowell, who you probably remember from American Idol back in the days of Randy and Paula, Simon Cowell saw something and decided to put these 5 boys together, and that's what formed One Direction, this really famous band that everyone really loved. But in 2015, they broke up. This is when Zayn Malik left the band, and a lot of the band members had separate individual careers. And that's actually what brings us to Argentina, because one of Liam Payne's bandmates in One Direction, Niall Horan, was actually touring in Argentina at the time. So Liam Payne decided to head down there to visit with his friends, see the concert, hang out, and that's the reason he was in Buenos Aires. He rented a hotel in the Palermo neighborhood. It was called Casa Sur Hotel, and right away things seemed off. There's reports that Liam Payne had kind of a outburst in the lobby. He had a laptop with him and he was smashing it. He got pretty violent. Things just seemed a little strange. There are other reports that he was like in and out of consciousness, like struggling to stand. He had to lean on hotel employees or the wall, like just seemed completely out of it. But all of that culminated on October 16th, and that was the night that Liam Payne fell from his 3rd floor balcony and died as a result of this shocking fall. Hotel employees knew something was up even before the fall, though. They actually called emergency responders, and I want to read you the quote that they apparently said. Quote, "I don't know if the guest's life is in danger. The room has a balcony, and we are afraid he might do something." So emergency responders head over to the Casa Sur Hotel almost right away, but by the time they arrive, Liam Payne has already fallen from his balcony and he's dead. Investigators in Argentina immediately started working to figure out what led up to his death, and that included a toxicology report. So they tested both his blood and his urine, and it turned out he had quite a few drugs in his system, including cocaine. There were some prescription antidepressants and something known as pink cocaine. It's actually not cocaine, you might have heard of it, but it's ecstasy, ketamine, and caffeine all mixed in. So basically he had an overwhelming amount of drugs in his system at the time of his fall. And actually in his hotel room when it was eventually searched, there was a lot of drug paraphernalia there, like a candle, a soda can top, there was some aluminum foil, and this Dove soap carton that apparently was used to give Liam Payne some of the drugs, which we'll get to in a minute. But before I talk about all of that, we have to break the new news, which is that we officially know his cause of death. So Liam Payne is from the United Kingdom, and after all of the investigations with his body were complete in Argentina, it was sent back to the United Kingdom to be with his father. And investigators up there also took a look at it, and we're now learning the official cause of death is polytrauma. I didn't know what that word meant ahead of time, so I looked it up, and it means that there's multiple traumatic injuries. And this is something we probably could have already guessed. If you've watched any of our reports about this before, we've talked about how his head injury is likely what caused his death, that there were internal and external hemorrhages. I mean, he fell from the 3rd floor balcony. It's a huge fall. So we do know now the official cause of death, but we still have a lot of questions about what led up to it. So we know that he was up in his hotel room and he was actually alone, so there's no eyewitnesses there. Some people are speculating that he might have tried to leave his hotel because when investigators searched the balcony right beneath his on the 2nd floor, they found a bag and it had a whiskey bottle inside, and on it was written "For Liam." So they know that his bag was on the balcony directly beneath his, and some people think maybe he dropped down the bag on purpose and was hoping to himself jump down to the 2nd floor balcony. We don't know about that. We also don't even know if he was conscious at the time of the fall. So it's possible he lost consciousness before he fell, during the fall, or when he hit the ground. We still don't know the answers to that. But some people who may be able to give us a couple of answers are the following, these 5 people who've been charged. I want to start with the hotel staff. That's the hotel manager, her name is Gilda Martin, and the chief receptionist, Esteban Grassi. They were both charged with manslaughter. I'll start with Gilda first. Basically, this is the woman who oversees the entire hotel. Authorities down in Argentina say Liam Payne was obviously intoxicated. He was on a lot of drugs. He was not standing up straight. He was not doing well. Why did you let him go off on his own. He should not have been left alone. You did wrong by allowing him to go to his hotel room alone. And it's kind of similar for Esteban Grassi, that's the chief receptionist. Apparently he helped coordinate getting Liam Payne up into his hotel room. This guy got a couple of other people together, his coworkers, whoever, and helped drag Liam Payne up to his room because he couldn't walk by himself. So again, he's charged with manslaughter because authorities say you should have known better. He shouldn't have been on his own. You should have called emergency responders. Another person who's also charged with manslaughter is actually Liam Payne's friend. It's this guy named Rogelio Norris, who goes by the name Roger. He had been a longtime friend of Liam Payne. And if you followed Liam Payne's life or career at all, you know that he's had a struggle with drugs and alcohol. And apparently his friend Roger was there with him through rehab, through the ups and downs, was actually on vacation with him in Argentina at the time. And officials down there say that Roger didn't do his part for his friend. Basically, he saw that Liam Payne, again, was intoxicated, couldn't stand up straight, should not be left alone, and he decided to leave anyway. So that's why he's been charged with manslaughter. But there are also drug charges involved. Actually, this brings us right to last week when a different hotel employee at Casa Sur was arrested. This guy's name is Ezekiel David Perea, and he is an alleged drug dealer who gave Liam Payne some of the drugs that apparently were in his system at the time of his death. So that happened last week, but just this week, another person was arrested. His name is Brian Pays. He turned himself over to police actually, and he's also accused of being a drug dealer. He met Liam Payne on this specific trip to Argentina. He was a waiter and Liam Payne met him there, but apparently he also got some drugs that were given to Liam Payne and thus led to his death. So this case, I still have a lot of questions about, and I'm hoping for some answers. We're gonna bring in retired NYPD detective Tom Smith. And Tom, this happened way back in October, but we're still getting more details now into the new year. Is it normal for an investigation to act like this?
Oh, sure. Investigations take time. Investigations just evolve with time, because you have new witnesses that come up, you have new accounts of what happened, you have new evidence that may come up depending on the case. So even though, and I say this all the time, even though you have either a body or even after an arrest, the case doesn't stop. It continues to go because more people are going to be involved with the investigation, with either as a witness or just giving information about what happened.
And speaking of more people being involved, that's kind of why we're talking about this story today, because there have been a couple more arrests. So let's talk about that. Last week, one of the alleged drug dealers was arrested. And again, we're in 2025. We're months removed from when this happened. So my question right from the jump is, why would it have taken that long for his arrest?
Well, it depends on a lot of things. One, you want to make sure if you have someone in mind that is directly involved, you want to make sure you have an airtight case. You want all the evidence ready to go, statements ready to go, and everything you need to go against this person, you want in place before you arrest him. Because then it can get boggled down with not having enough and not having enough to hold him. So in our case, the NYPD, you always started prepping for trial as you're going through the motions of who you're going to arrest. So you have that all in place. And that's probably what happened here.
You're saying that we need some airtight evidence. And by we, I guess I mean the prosecutors down in Argentina want this airtight evidence. For me, I'm thinking, okay, that's cell phones, messages, things like that, or surveillance video. But if there isn't any of that, we don't know for sure that there is surveillance video of these people together or texts saying, I'm giving you these drugs, that it's just blatant like that. What sort of evidence would they then be looking for that would help with their case?
Well, a lot of interviews, a lot of maybe third person accounts of what happened. And there's other people that are going to know what happened. When you have celebrity deaths, when you have celebrity cases, they don't keep quiet about what they're doing. In any case that me and you have discussed or other cases that are on shows, celebrity cases are very complex because they don't shut up. They have a lot of resources that they depend on exactly in this situation. But so many others that have been discussed and fortunately end up the same way. There's a lot of people that are involved in this. So you take your time going through other people's, phones, anyone involved with this, and that'll bring out certain things. Talking
about the celebrity aspect of this case, because obviously just in general, it's It's sad. It's a tragedy. This guy was only 31 years old. He's very young, a life cut far too short. But the reason we're really talking about it, and this is probably my fifth story about it, is because it's Liam Payne and everyone knows who he is, or they at least know one direction. So a lot of people are kind of gravitating toward this case. And that leads into my next question about the celebrity side of things. Could that make things a bit messy for investigators because people want to be involved with something so high profile?
Oh, absolutely. The one fortunate part of this, it's not in the United States. It's in Argentina. So it is probably going to be a little bit more confined than it being here. And you've been involved in those. When celebrities die in the United States, it is 24/7, 7 days a week on every channel. They may have a little different take down there with kind of quelling the craziness of a celebrity death a little bit. But it is still what it is because you're still going to have the media down there, and the department investigative body is still going to have to, address certain questions about what's going on. And the prosecutor's office are also going to be, asked certain questions and updates on the case. So, whether it's in the United States or not, the celebrity part of it is always a big task.
And one of the new aspects of this case is a second alleged drug dealer who's been arrested. And speaking of the celebrity, he was just a waiter. And apparently he was waiting on Liam Payne. He even took a photo with him because it is a celebrity. And that's kind of how they met each other. And then apparently he gave him these drugs. Obviously, Liam Payne died. We know the rest of the story. But he turned himself into police just this week. So a week after that other drug dealer was arrested. Do you think that was a good move for him to come forward to police like that?
Well, yeah, because right now we're still, kind of filtering through his story and what his involvement actually is. You run, you take off, that's bad, on your case, whatever it might be. So if you get counsel, get the advice of counsel, talk to the DA, and I'm saying DA, they're prosecutors, about where they're at, what do they have on him? What can we talk about? All that is all a negotiation tool when you're going to turn yourself in. Everything's kind of laid out. So when you do turn yourself in, it's a sit down, you go over what's said, what evidence you have, and why this person is important to the investigation.
I would definitely be interested to see what their conversations look like. I know here in America, we have the Miranda rights. You have a right to attorney. I don't know if it's the same down there. So I wonder what that sort of interrogation or interview might have looked like. But bringing it back to the top of the interview, we were talking about, okay, this happened way back in October, but things are still trickling out. And one of the new details that we have as well is his official cause of death. Obviously, we knew it was because of the fall, but there's a word, polytrauma. That's what the United Kingdom was saying is the big cause of death because, of course, Liam Payne is from the United Kingdom. His body was sent back there, and now we officially know polytrauma. Do you know anything about that? Apparently, it's multiple traumatic injuries to the head or the body.
Yeah, I've heard it and not done a lot of checking into it because it's very odd. I haven't heard it here in the United States be used. Certain aspects of a medical examination of this chemical caused this drug caused this heart attack, whatever it might be, all leads to this. But when you get into the word trauma, no matter what it's attached to, is going to impact the case, whether it's the fall or something that happened before the fall. Was there something that happened in the room before the last tragic event happened? So all of that is going to get played out. And that definition, if this does go to trial, is going to be thrown around a lot.
You're right. There are a lot of details into all of this because he did have drugs in his system. Then he has the injuries that he sustained in this fall. But you talked about the moments right before he fell from the balcony. And that's where things are kind of wild because we don't know. He was alone at the time. And it's not like we have a text showing, hey, I'm about to fall from a balcony. I mean, we didn't see anything like that. There's no video or anything like that. So does that make things even harder for investigators to know exactly what happened before this fall?
Oh, sure. And again, you just go to basic investigative skills. And what you're going to do is who is around him? Where's his assistants? Where's everyone who is in his, we've heard this term, inner circle? Where are they? And those interviews are going to be big. What happened that night? How is he acting that night? Why was he in his room by himself? Did he tell you he wanted to be alone? All those statements that you're going to get from his inner circle are going to play a big part in what happened in that room prior to the fall.
The inner circle, that's a great segue into some of the other people who are charged in all of this. One of them is actually his friend who was there with him in Argentina. And this guy is charged with leaving Liam Payne. Basically, he saw that he was intoxicated. He shouldn't have been left alone. And he apparently still left the hotel and now is facing manslaughter charges because he left. What do you make of all of that? Do you think that that could be a strong case, or he could maybe have that dismissed?
Looking at it in the United States, that would be really hard. Again, not knowing every legal aspect of their penal law or their charging, that they do down there. But that might be difficult to do because as much as, you might have a part in what happened, at the end, it's hard to control the actions of someone that you're not near. So that defense might be pretty strong. But again, a lot of it is going to determine on what else was said, what else was done, what was his actions before he left. So did he say, I want to do this to myself? And then he went, well, I'm out of here. So a lot of it goes back to the statements that I made in the interviews of what was said before he left. That's going to be a big part.
Before he left, we also have some info from a couple of hotel employees. So one was the manager of the Costa Sur Hotel, and another was, I guess, the lead receptionist. And they are both charged with manslaughter in relation to, again, seeing that Liam Payne was out of it. He's obviously intoxicated in some way, maybe on some drugs. And yet these two people put him up in his room, put him alone. Apparently, they facilitated him being drugged into his room with other people. Like, he couldn't even walk. So those two people also face charges. What do you make of those charges?
Yeah, it goes to the same thing. I mean, look at it from take the celebrity part out of it. Someone's acting irrational or drunk or on drugs or whatever. Hey, get them to bed, let them sleep it off. Was that said? Sure, that could be why they just put him in his room, leave him alone, let him pass out. He'll feel better in the morning. Whatever that conversation might have been. I'm speculating, obviously, but again, it's these interviews of why, when, how that are going to play a big part in the finality of this.
It has to be tough for anyone involved in this because, as you said, it doesn't seem like there was anything malicious. There was no evil intent here. Basically, like what you were saying, oh, let him sleep it off. Or, they eventually did even call 911 or their version of 911 to call for emergency responders because they were concerned. So it's really just a tragedy overall. Talking about the investigation, though, you keep going back to all of that, the interviews, the witnesses, what happened, all of that. Where do you think the investigation is moving from here?
I think getting all that together, you get a timeline together of the beginning of the night through the night, and you filter in the middle of those timelines, the interviews and statements that were done and actions by the victim. All that plays a role into the timeline, which when I was a detective, timelines were big with me because it gives you just a snapshot of what happened before, during, and after this tragic event. And that's going to be big in the investigation. So I just see that continuing. And like I said, nothing stops. The investigation keeps going. Even if the trial starts, you still keep digging around and seeing what's out there because witnesses pop out of nowhere and evidence can be gathered even after this procedures get started.
Talking about that investigation and it's still going, you said more witnesses or more evidence, all of that. Do you think that could lead to additional charges if they stumble upon something that is huge?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Like I said, it could lead to something that happened back here before he left for that trip. All that's also going to play into it. What was done in the United States? What conversations did he have? Who did he talk to in the United States before he went on that trip, while he was traveling? So all that plays into the overall investigation of this. And tragically, it is going to come to an end at some point with the trial, and it's all going to be played out, and it's all going to get litigated, and we're all going to see where it goes and what happens.
We keep saying that it's a tragedy because it truly is. This case is just so tough to talk about. But Tom, thanks for coming on with us and breaking down the investigation for us.
No, it's my pleasure. It's always nice to see you.
Something we talked about a lot in that interview is that the investigation into Liam Payne's death is still ongoing. More details are coming out, more witnesses are coming forward, lots of new information. So this is not the last story we're going to do on it. As soon as more info comes out, we definitely will bring it to you. So make sure to check back here. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Gillespie.